Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. I've called to order this 94th regular session. We're going to have the invocation by Pastor Elizabeth Jackson from Audubon Church and the pledge of the flag. If you would please stand and join us.
Join me in a moment of prayer. Holy One, who is known by unique names to each of us, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of community and justice, we ask your blessings on the work before this body. We ask your blessings on those who lead and those whom they serve. We are thankful for this community in which we live and work and play. Remind us all to be intent on listening to one another. Help the work before this body to be done through a deep sense of connection to this place, to this time, and to one another. Remind us as we gather, as the agenda does the work, and as we leave this place, we are neighbors. Neighbors when we are alike, neighbors when we are different, neighbors when we agree, neighbors when we see things differently. We are neighbors beyond our neighborhoods, beyond our boundaries, beyond our knowledge of one another. Holy One, allow this space to be a place where the common good comes first, where everyone is represented, respected, and protected. Let all be included, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who are unhoused, those who are ill in body, mind, and spirit, strangers in our midst, and certainly those who live on the margins, those who are alone, and those who feel forgotten. Grant all present the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true, and urge us all to do whatever we do with an excess of kindness. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. May it be so. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll be following the rules of procedure that became effective on January 21st of 2020. If you have a cell phone, please do what I'm doing. All correspondence or distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Meeting dates in March are March the 3rd is the State of the City at 7 a.m. at the Maryland Theater. We have a work session at 4 p.m. And then on March 3rd also we'll have a State of the City at 6 p.m. at the Bridge of Life, 14 South Potomac Street. Tuesday, March 10th is a work session at 4, March 17th a work session at 4, and the 24th a regular session at 7 p.m. There is no meeting scheduled for the 31st. We have two appointments this evening. Lou, if you would please.
Mr. Mayor, I move for appointments to the Board of Traffic and Parking of William Brickner for a term to expire January 31, 2024. And for Joseph Marchner for his term to expire March 24, 2024.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Now it's time for agenda item citizen comments. Those issues that we are discussing this evening before we go into the consent agenda and our public hearings and everything, and then we'll have general citizen comments at the end. So, Bob Bloomfield?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please step up to the microphone, give us your name and address, please.
Please, Robert Bloomfield, 98 Park Avenue. If there's anybody to speak on the west end of Hagerstown and the zoning change, it's definitely me. I live right by the reservoir there for the city of Hagerstown. Let me tell you a little bit about myself for a second. This is how God built me up in a town that's 70% unchurched. I tried so hard in this town. Ask anybody who really knows me. A lot of times worked till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to make ends meet. Played in a Christian band on stages all over this area and in the Mummers Parade, promoting what Jesus taught to your community, your loved ones. Tried to be a good citizen. I voted, paid a whole lot of taxes, always cleaned the snow off my sidewalks and off the water meter cover. Even went so far as to release the last of the aerosol from the can so the recycle man doesn't get hurt. Always put my shopping cart back and offered to put other people's shopping carts back, to put others first. I truly believe that if God sees He can't trust you in the little things, He won't put you in a position of big things. I gave away a small fortune to your charities, Reach Cold Weather Shelter, to the church to promote the coming kingdom, the Salvation Army, Christian Radio, the Red Cross, MS, the Special Olympics, teaching your youth to give away their extra money to the poor and the widows instead of plastering
Mayor, point
themselves.
of order.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with an agenda?
Yeah, is this, because it says zoning is your topic?
Yeah, I'm getting to that. It's
Okay,
in-
all
it's
right.
in-
What zoning? Is it the comprehensive rezoning? Because that would come under, Mr. Mayor, the
Public hearing, yes.
There is no other zoning in front of us tonight.
So
Okay.
are you going to be speaking about the comprehensive rezoning?
Yes.
Okay, will you want to hold your comments until the public hearing and then give your comments then?
Well,
That would be the only appropriate time, Mr. Mayor.
I would like to read this whole thing, and, we better get it out in the open here.
I think what they're saying is you can read it.
Yeah, you can
During
read it
public
during,
comments
right,
at
during the
that portion
public
of the
hearing.
meeting.
There is comment section during the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my comment is, why do they want to change the zoning? The city of Hagerstown isn't going to obey any zoning they have anyway.
Okay. Well, I'll call you back up when we get to the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Daniel Tucker? Is that right? Donald? Oh, mine's kind of light. Tucker, Yeah, that's me. Okay, all right, Donna, okay, yeah, there's, yeah.
So
Come on.
you just want comments on this?
On the rezoning,
Yes.
yes, that's.
I live at 230 Heb Road, Hagerstown.
Okay, now, all right. So you're gonna comment, if it's about the public hearing and the zoning for this evening, then you'll comment during the public hearing, during citizen comments, okay? All right,
It'll be next.
yes, very next thing on the agenda. Michael lives on South Cleveland?
Fitzgerald,
Oh, Fifth,
Same
all
thing,
right.
right?
same thing.
Are you gonna comment on the?
Zoning.
Okay.
Go sit down.
Thank you.
That's why we had sign-up sheets.
Okay.
It looks like, yeah.
Text amendments, I'm here for text amendments. I'm here. Sorry.
Okay,
How's everybody doing?
we're doing fantastic.
How are you guys? Everybody doing good? So I just wanted to bring up a couple points. For those of you that don't know me, I started in a one-bedroom apartment here in Hagerstown. I've turned over 100 homes to homeowners over the last decade and a half. I've regenerated 100,000 square feet of commercial downtown, and I've given over 200 tours to developers from other areas, and have been successful in selling many major downtown properties. For example, the 10-unit in Berkson's that was a dump that was recommended to be knocked down, completely fixed up. I got that buyer. So I want people to think about that, and I want people to think what's really good. I want people to think about what's really good for the city, and to ask themselves, if you're coming from out of the area and you're buying a building that looks like a 4-unit building, it has 5 utility meters, five electric meters, 5 gas meters. If you're buying that building and you're coming in here, is it fair to take that building and say, hey, and this is what the text amendments are about, and I think it's understood anyway, is it fair to say, we're gonna make that 1 unit now, or 1 unit per address? This building that's always been a 4-unit building, we're gonna change that. If you were that investor from out of town, would you ever come back to the city of Hagerstown? I'd say no. And this is a guy that's done over $80 million investment downtown, currently holds over $30 million in investment downtown, and works hard for the downtown every day. So, I really want you guys to think about that. That's something that needs to be changed. I appreciate everybody on the city council. I know you guys are all hardworking officials. Please don't fall asleep on me, Kristen. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions for me about it, feel free to reach out to me. I know everybody in the room cares
Mr. Mayor,
about the city of Hagerstown. You guys care about the city. The audience cares about the city. If you're
Michael,
asking yourself what's
please
best-
bear with me for a minute.
Sure.
Okay? Because I don't want people to think that I don't play fairly. But
Sure.
there's nothing on our agenda tonight on the text amendment, which also wouldn't be appropriate then for citizen comments on that issue. Unless, do we have text amendments on the agenda tonight?
Land management code, yeah.
I'm just saying, it's
On
a
the
very
land
good.
management code, okay.
It's a
I'm just-
very good ordinance for
I'm
the
just
city.
trying to be consistent.
It's a very good ordinance for the city. It's a very good ordinance for getting investment into the city. And, you know, I understand if it's a house, it was cut up into 5 units. But if it's a building, it's always been a building. I think it should remain a building. And I can tell you, we've lost a lot of outside investment that would have multiplied because of that zoning rule. So I think it's a good thing. Think about if it happened to you, if you were investing from an outside community, how you'd feel. I helped a doctor buy a 4-unit in Hagerstown 2 years ago. Because of the mess and him not being able to make it 4 units, I've been fighting for this for 2 years. And I took out all the holding costs, and I've already paid him for the property, and I'm transferring it when I get this done. Not because I wanted to, not because it was a good deal for me, but because it was a guy that didn't buy many properties, and I see this as a bad law for many years, and I wanted to come in and talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
You guys have a great night.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
Okay, anybody else want to just talk about anything that's on the agenda aside from zoning? Yes. Is it on the agenda? Because it's citizen comments for you at the end. Okay, at the end then. All right. We definitely got to change this.
Well, we need to be, folks, it's a little distressing. We had 3 sign-up sheets tonight. And we need to get a little bit more clear for everybody. One of them was on what most people were here for, and that is for the comprehensive plan review, which would be the zoning. And I even have trouble finding which one it is, so we apologize for that confusion.
All right. So now we're going to have the public hearing on the comprehensive rezoning review.
Good evening. I'm Megan Flick. I'm a planner here at the city, and we are going to go ahead and review the comprehensive rezoning as part of the public hearing, and we will have citizen comments afterwards. So the city's updated comprehensive plan, Vision Hagerstown 2035, was adopted on April 3rd, 2018. In order to implement the comprehensive plan, the Planning Commission is initiating a comprehensive rezoning to create conforming uses and consistency between the future land use plan, which you see here, and our current zoning map. And when developing the new comp plan, the Planning Commission reviewed the conforming and non-conforming status for areas with inconsistent zoning, changes that had been occurred since the prior comp rezoning, mistakes which had been made in delineating zoning district lines, and then also the express plans of property owners. As a result of this analysis, the plan's future land use map included recommended areas for a future comprehensive rezoning. So this map you're looking at here essentially dictates zoning in the city. Here we have some future land use data. This data represents the amount of each future land use designation in the city by acreage and percentage. It kind of provides a bigger picture of the intended land use of the city. So as you can see, it's mostly residential, some downtown, and some commercial. So the first group of properties to be rezoned are in direct response to the future land use plan. So these properties are the Potomac Maple Avenue area, East Baltimore Street, north side of Heb Road, North Burhans and Church Street, Linwood Tract, Daub Farm, South End Shopping Center, Hagerstown Industrial Park, the Zion Parsonage, and then the site on Potomac and Northern Avenue. And I'll just go through each of these properties. So the first is the rezoning on Potomac Maple. That's recommended to go from CG, Commercial General, to NMU, which is Neighborhood Mixed Use. CG is not well suited here due to the mixture of commercial and residential uses. So right now, since most of these uses are residential, they're actually non-conforming in the commercial district. So rezoning them to a mixed use would make all of those properties conforming. And that mixed-use zoning district allows most residential uses, mixed-use buildings, and then some commercial uses as well. Again, mixed use just better reflects kind of the character of this whole area. It's much more residential in nature. And then similarly on East Baltimore Street, there's some RO or residential office, and then mostly CG, Commercial General, all recommended to go to NMU, which is Neighborhood Mixed Use. We have the same situation here where Commercial General is not well suited here. There's a much wider mixture of residential uses. And again, most of these properties are currently non-conforming, and the rezoning would make these properties conforming uses in that district. Next, we have the property on the north side of Heb Road. It's currently zoned RH, or high-density residential, and it's recommended to go to POM, or professional office mixed use. The property is adjacent to large areas of non-residentially zoned land and may lend itself better to business employment uses. It's also felt that there's a lot of high-density residential elsewhere in the city. Next, we have the site on North Burhanson Church. It's currently zoned IR, industrial restricted, and is recommended to go to CG, or commercial general. As you can see, they're very narrow properties. The former use has been abandoned, and redevelopment for new industrial use would be pretty difficult. So the idea is that the commercial zoning better positions the site for potential redevelopment in the future. Next, we have the Linwood tract, which is currently zoned RMED, or medium density residential, and it's recommended to go to IG, or industrial general. The Linwood project and the Housing Authority's plans have both been abandoned here, so the rezoning would allow expansion of the Hagerstown Business Park, which is adjacent to this parcel. Next, we have the Dow Farm property, which is currently zoned Palm Professional Office Mixed Use, recommended to go to CR Commercial Regional. This change in zoning just allows for maximum flexibility on the site. Also, as you can see, it's just that one parcel, so creating the rezoning here would just make it so that all the parcels are consistently commercial on this tract of land. Next, we have the South End Shopping Center. It's currently zoned CG, Commercial General, and it's recommended to go to IG, Industrial General. It's just the southernmost portion of this parking lot here, and that's just for the expansion of Great Southern Wood, which is an adjacent use there. So we would just shift the zoning district line up so that that business can expand into that area. Next, we have the Hagerstown Industrial Park, which is currently zoned IR, or industrial restricted. It's recommended to go to IG, Industrial General. The current restricted industrial use is inconsistent with the character of the park and the IG zoned Hagerstown Business Park. So the idea is to just have the zoning for both parks to be IG to just better reflect the uses there. Next, we have the Zion Parsonage. It's currently zoned RO, or residential office, recommended to go to CCMU, City Center Mixed Use. This was actually a mistake in creating previous zoning lines, so the zoning line actually goes down the side of the building there. So we would just be putting that parcel in the same zoning district as the rest of the parsonage buildings. And then the last property for this group is the site on Potomac and Northern. It's currently zoned POM, or Professional Office Mixed Use, recommended to go to CL, which is Commercial Local. And CL is kind of a good fit for this area because it provides a buffer between that commercial regional and then also that moderate density residential on Eastern. And then also wanted to note that that back right parcel, it's actually under a forest conservation easement. It's part of the Court Park development, and it actually has a future land use recommendation of high density residential. So we may consider just that far right parcel becoming RH, more for map beautification. It's a floodplain area, but that's just more of a mistake there. And then the next group of properties are more, like I said, map beautification, just to clean up mistakes we've made previously or to correct other zoning district lines. So we have some properties on Summit, on South Street, Fairground Avenue, and then the rear of Stone Soup and Eddie's Tire. So 307 and 309 Summit are currently zoned commercial local, recommended to go to medium density residential. They're both houses, they're residential properties, they should have residential zoning. That one's pretty simple. And then 300 to 334 Summit is currently zoned commercial general, and we're recommending it go to commercial local to just better fit the character of the surrounding uses and kind of that whole area. And then we have 329 South, which is a house that's currently zoned industrial restricted, so just correcting that to make it a residentially zoned property. It would be residential office to match that neighboring zoning district that you see there. And then we have the properties on Fairground Avenue. We have 11 to 19 and then 24 to 32. They're all or mostly houses and are currently zoned commercial general, so the recommendation is to go to medium density residential. Again, putting them in that same zoning district that the surrounding houses are in. And then you can also see the Potomac Maple rezoning shown in that map as well. So it'd be mixed use and residential there instead of all commercial. Then we have the rear of Stone Soup and Eddie's Tire. This was another mistake that was made. That sliver of a parcel behind those 3 orange parcels should have been zoned CG. So it's currently zoned POM or professional office mixed, and we're proposing to rezone it to commercial general. Again, more of map beautification, just something that had been missed previously. And then the last group of properties are properties to be rezoned to the new institutional zone. So as part of our land management code, we did create a new institutional zone. So it's intended to capture those larger residentially zoned properties that are kind of more campus style in nature. So it's mostly city parks, schools, and then a couple other facilities with institutional uses. So as you can see on the list here, this is mostly schools and city parks, this first group. And then this next group, we have properties like the YMCA, the Potomac Center, Washington County Health Department, Western Maryland Hospital Center, along with more schools. And then we have Federal Little League, Washington County Highway, more parks, and then also the City Water Department and Public Works Shed. So here's the existing zoning and then the proposed institutional zone. And like I said, it's just those larger kind of residential campus-style properties that we are proposing to zone institutional. And here's a couple more closer up, so you can really tell that they're those larger residentially zoned properties, just kind of throughout the city in that pale pink color. And then just to familiarize everyone with the process, Planning Commission had their public review last summer in June of 19. We did pursue comprehensive plan amendments before we returned to this. So Planning Commission had their final recommendation to Mayor and Council of the rezoning package in February of 2020. Obviously today, February 25th, is the public hearing, and the public record will remain open for 10 days until March 6th. So then from there, the Mayor and Council will introduce the comp rezoning ordinance, and then the comp rezoning will be adopted. Would also like to enter into the record certificate of advertisement for the hearing, and then the Planning Commission file by reference. We also did receive public input. I think you all received a copy of that email for someone who couldn't make it, and I think they were opposing the rezoning from CG to NMU in the Potomac Maple area. And then for anyone who's not here watching at home or doesn't want to speak or doesn't feel comfortable speaking, again, the public record is open for 10 more days. So here's my contact info. Anyone can call, email me, submit written input that the Mayor and Council will consider as part of their public input for the rezoning. That's all I got.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, so now we have testimony for and against, and Bob Bloomfield, you're first.
Sir, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes, Robert Bloomfield, 98 Park Avenue. As I tell you the last part of this story, I would like you to be picturing the real kind of love God asks us to have for each other, and was I ever shown that biblical love once? Over 31 and a half years ago, I bought a house in Hagerstown right next to the property where the city of Hagerstown runs their big open-to-the-air reservoir next to Helene Park and the Colt League, where hundreds of kids play ball with their families. It didn't take long for me to notice that the city of Hagerstown was running their own personal trucking depot and dump in this residential neighborhood. My house sits on the corner of Park Avenue and Water Street, so in effect I have twice the city's illegal traffic. Dump trucks, tool trucks, boom trucks, support trucks, and sewage trucks to empty out the portage on. Mud all over the road, trucks speeding in and out of the neighborhood, and being that my house only sits about 8 feet off the road, I'm seeing cracks in all my plaster walls. A friend of mine who is a master carpenter was on my sun porch when a fully loaded dump truck went flying by my house, causing everything to shake. He said, "Man, I can tell you where all those cracks are coming from. The city of Hagerstown is doing damage to your house." So on a dark night, I went up for a walk to the city's reservoir property. Here's what my truthful Christian eyes saw. A huge stack of used telephone poles covered in creosote, the size of a barn, Decades ago, the state mandated that every telephone pole covered in this wickedly cancerous stuff be removed from every playground and bus stop where a child could lean against it. This story stuck in my mind because where I went to school, when I came in from phys ed or recess, my hands often smelled like creosote from leaning against the poles. The second illegal thing I saw was a bunch of old transformers mounted to skids leaking stuff out the bottom. This is all on top of a 40-foot hill this city built over 4 decades of dumping what Brad Metzger at the Maryland Department of the Environment said should have never been dumped in a residential neighborhood next to an open-air reservoir. Anything the city dug up was dumped with no concern for the law. A good friend of mine called me from her social services office and said, "I just found out a piece of information that the city of Hagerstown is on a federal watch list for a suspiciously high rate of cancer compared to other towns the same size." I went and saw our Economic Development Coordinator, Zoning Administrator, Deborah Everhart. We looked at my property on paper. She was super helpful, a great asset for the city, explored several options on my 2-parcel lot. And she said that it was all zoned residential. When I told her of the city's commercial trucking depot, Deborah responded, "Sir, the city of Hagerstown has the reputation of doing whatever they want, regardless of the law." When having this conversation with one of my best friends, his stepfather overheard me complaining about the city damaging my house and stealing my joy of life and home ownership. His stepfather said he knew the first owner of the house, Old Man Miller, and these are the same things he was fighting the city of Hagerstown about. So they made 2 families' lives a living hell. I met a couple who got transferred all over the United States. They always tried to get into local politics to help the communities. He said this area is the worst example of the good old boys system he's ever seen. I tried everything to get some semblance of law and order, called the EPA, the Maryland Department of the Environment, Senator Don Munson, State Delegate Chris Shank, he never called me back, called Chief of Police Art Smith and Sheriff Douglas Mullendore again and again and again. They never called me back. I called big shot attorney Bruce Poole and told him the whole story. He said he couldn't help me, but he said to call Senator Don Munson. When I started telling the senator of the illegal activity, he rudely interrupted me and said in a gruff voice, "Who told you to call here?" I said, "Bruce Poole." The senator replied, "He did?" Said, "Sir, I'd like to help you, but I'm your state senator. The city reservoir is in city property, and you have to handle it through the city." So I called Streets and Alleys and got Brad Nicer. I tried to tell him about the extremely bumpy road in front of my house, but the city already pre-poisoned him against me. I begged him to pave my road in the love of Jesus. He thought he was putting me on mute, but I could still hear him loud and clear. He said, "He wants me to pave the road in the love of Jesus." And I could hear the whole office laughing in the background. I made an appointment to see Mayor Brucci. The second he heard the city of Hagerstown was doing this to me, he looked at his watch and said, "Hey, can we wrap this up now? I've got the gist of it. Let me work on this a couple days and I'll call you back." Even
When
though
was
I
that
called.
meeting, since you brought my name into this?
Say that one more time.
When was that meeting?
Several years ago, maybe the first time you were elected mayor, for sure.
Back in the late 90s?
Uh-huh.
Huh, because I don't remember you. Yeah, it was funny. It was weird.
Even though I called him back several times, he never called me back. I met an older retired city dump truck driver who told me years before I owned my house, he parked his dump truck up on the hill by the reservoir, 151 Park Avenue, and walked away from it. Then the emergency brake let loose and the truck came flying down the hill with no driver and smashed into the sun porch and house that I now own. He said that when he ran down to the house and found out that nobody was injured, just the house and truck, it was the most relieved he's ever felt in his life. This is one of the reasons why the laws are for everybody to follow. The truck should have never been in the neighborhood. When I talked to the sheriff's department, Lieutenant Art Overcash said, "If you're going to bring a case against them, make sure you get it transferred out of this area if you want to be treated fairly." One of the great neighbors, a good Bible-following guy, was exercising in Helene Park and saw some dishonest things and felt compelled to tell me. He said he saw a city dump truck at approximately 5 minutes to 4, quitting time, on Friday. This driver drove around the whole reservoir, the city's personal dump, as slow as he could for 2 laps. That's what caught my friend's attention. When the dump truck turned the corner right by my house, he said the driver stood on the gas pedal and made all the dirt fly out of his tires all the way up the street. On just such an occasion, I called the sheriff's department, and they sent Deputy Clay to my house. He walked up on my porch and said, "Now, what's your problem?" I tried telling him all the laws that were being broken by the police, and the police said they can't help me. He stopped me and said, "Mr. Bloomfield," I never told him my name, "the people you're stepping on their toes that are in a position of power above you, they could take a suitcase full of cocaine and pull it out of the evidence room, put it in your family's kitchen, and make you go away for distribution for 25 years, and they would never think another thing about you." What it is it's witness intimidation plus 10 other charges. Now, when you hear a cop say, if you
You got
see
about
something...
another minute, Bob. You got 5 minutes, you got about another minute.
Okay, thank you. Now, when you hear a cop say, if you see something, say something, what they really mean is, if you see something that's worth a lot of money to the state's attorney's office, by all means, say something. But if you see the city, county, and state breaking a dozen laws next to the city's open-air reservoir, next to a park that's beside 4 baseball fields, save yourself the trouble and don't say anything. Please someone tell all the people that I've named, being in trouble with dishonest men, that's not real trouble. Being in trouble with God, now that's being in trouble. I ain't in trouble with God. So I'm looking forward to see how God protects me from you all. One good thing that has happened during this whole fiasco is when the city workers knew I was the one turning them in, they pounded over these bumps with fully loaded dump trucks, vindictively damaging my house, sewer dust, cancer-causing dust. It drove me to my knees over and over again in prayer, and I developed a relationship with the God of the universe. In the city's favor, after me complaining for 27 years, they finally changed the zoning in my neighborhood. Now they have the free license to do whatever they want in a residential neighborhood with a street so narrow 2 dump trucks can't really pass each other. I can't really end this letter without adding Mike Spiker, head of the water department, and Nancy Hausrath, his sidekick. They did all this to me.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. We're not going to talk about personalities, so why don't we enforce that?
Bob's wrapping up. Bob, please.
Sure. These people did this to me, to everybody that paid for water out of the reservoir, to everybody that played in this park, and instead of going to jail, they get a Christmas bonus and a raise. For thousands of payroll hours representing years, the city has been digging up this entire hillside to get rid of the evidence. When I tried to sneak behind them and see where they were dumping the stuff, they spotted me and led me on a wild goose chase all through Hagerstown, all through Smithsburg, all on the back roads, on the taxpayers' gas and equipment. They did not want me to know where this stuff was being dumped, but I already knew. To the side of Ace Hardware in Cavetown, Maryland, there is a set of railroad tracks. On the other side of the tracks, there's an old abandoned quarry. I saw the city trucks dumping there. That quarry is being used by William H. Hetzer Construction Company. Where they're taking it, I don't know. I would like to hear from the city council and get your reaction on how they treated me. What would you be asking the city for monetarily if they did this to you?
Thank you, Bob. Oh, they're not going to respond to you. We don't.
Maybe
If
I
you
can
want to
hang
send
out.
an email, feel free.
Maybe I can hang out afterwards and talk to everybody and get a response.
Sounds good. All right, next up, Donna Tucker. And we are talking about this issue.
The rezoning?
Yes.
Yeah, on
Thank
Heb
you.
Road.
Go ahead.
I'm
Name
just-
and address. I'm sorry.
Oh, Donna Tucker, 230 Heb Road. That plot of land they're talking about rezoning, number one, is a watershed. And I can't understand why they would want to rezone for more commercial buildings when there's already so many in in Hagerstown that's not being used.
Is that it? Thank you, Donna. Anything, Mike, from you? Mike Fitzgerald, you still here?
I think anything with zoning, commercial that's smart and adapted to the environment is gonna be good for bringing tax dollars in, so I'm overall positive about the rezoning.
Thank you.
And the text amendments, 100%. They need to happen.
All right. So on the rezoning, let's see. Yep, Edward Kozinski.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Edward Kozinski. I represent Ben Shaul. I am here in reference to the comprehensive rezoning. I have 6 packets in writing with some illustration, my client's request in this connection. We are not here in reference to a specific property that's been identified by the staff, but we are here to request that a parcel that is owned by Ben Shaul on the east side of Eastern Boulevard be added to this comprehensive rezoning process. I've been brought into this rather late. My client has had some dialogue with the planning staff prior to tonight, and the recommendation that I at least have received is that this would be the way to go. That at this point to take this parcel and ask that it be rezoned from RMOD, so residential moderate, to RMED would be appropriate at this time, and is, for the reasons that we've set forth in the written request, compatible with the comprehensive plan. This parcel, if you go to the 3rd page, which I believe hopefully is marked as Exhibit 1, you can see that the parcel lies on, I think, the eastern side of Eastern Boulevard. It is right before the dog leg, if you're heading in the direction of the YMCA, before you make that turn. This is a strip of property that is 5.9 acres, and if you look at this diagram, you can see that about half of it is consumed by floodplain that in the lighter green would allow perhaps streets or other infrastructure, and then a teal color which would not allow for any construction. This particular parcel, with its current zoning, creates some practical difficulties from the standpoint of development, because our mod only allows essentially single or 2-family residential construction. The lot sizes are larger, the density requirements are more stringent, and by virtue of this configuration, it would be extremely difficult to create lots that would permit the construction of homes that would make it economically feasible to extend the utilities that do not currently reach this property. However, our RMED makes this property a little more workable from a development standpoint. It is a medium density zoning, and it is in an area that has been designated by the future map, which was shown by Ms. Flick, as being a medium density residential area. Based upon what the state law says as it relates to your future use map, properties that are designated with a particular density use or a particular use are to be rezoned in that direction when a comprehensive rezoning occurs. So in essence, what we're asking is that the property be brought into the fold in connection with your future map. It is clearly, does not allow high-density residential. If you look at this, one of the other things that will create a bit of a restriction for the Shauls or whoever might own this to develop it is that the county is in the process of attempting to widen Eastern Boulevard. And when they If that is successfully occurs, and successful negotiations occur between the Showells and the county, you'll see a portion of this property will be taken from the Showell use, and it is directly on the road front, so it is part of the property that you can see that really would be the property that could be developed. So the more that eats into that, the less ability exists to develop the parcel. So in an effort to try to keep this tract compatible with the comprehensive plan, also keep it at a point where it can, with a reasonable level of practicality, be developed, and then hopefully with an eye towards creating affordable housing that would be in the form of housing sales to city residents, to do something that is within the spirit, intent, and harmony of the comprehensive plan.
Ed, can I ask you though, if we were to do what you're asking, and maybe council can help me or Kathy, would we not have to start this whole process over again? I mean,
My understanding from talking to, I haven't talked to Jennifer, but talking to Kathy, is that with the presentation that we're making tonight, and the reason I put it into writing is I think it'll be forwarded to the Planning Commission tomorrow night, and be added as part of their consideration of the comprehensive rezoning.
okay, and then it would have to come back to us again, and then we would have to have another public hearing, I'm assuming.
That
people
I'm
would
not,
have to-
that I'm not sure about. I think it is part of the public hearing you're doing now. You eventually are going to have, I guess, another hearing before you finally pass your.
I don't think so. No, this would be the only, my only concern is that if we didn't have another public hearing, nobody else would be notified of this.
No, we wouldn't need to have another public
Yeah,
hearing.
and I'm not saying I'm opposed, I just am asking to
The
clarify.
procedural aspect, I would
Right.
defer to
I
Kathy.
appreciate that, thank you.
So with that, like I said, I've tried to provide, again, on short notice, our position in this regard. There's really no hidden agenda here. I
No, I
mean,
understand.
Mr. Showell has been a developer in this community for many, many years. This is also not a hidden agenda here to create high-density residential units. This is an effort to take a piece of property that really is not appropriately zoned right now, take advantage of the comprehensive rezoning process, which doesn't require any change or mistake evidence or testimony, and bring it under the umbrella of the comprehensive rezoning. In reality, if this application or request is accepted and runs through the process, really state law would say that because this is right in line with your future use map, then you essentially are required to rezone it to the RMED. And the RMED, when you read your definitions and your comprehensive plan and you read everything, it is perfect for this property, because it's, again, it's still only total 6 acres. There's only so much you can do with it. Breaking that into single-family lots probably never happens, so you're just going to have a piece of property that's going to sit there vacant forever until somebody decides they want to put a big house up on Eastern Boulevard with a 6-acre lot.
So I just want to understand as clearly as possible the number of points of the argument that you're making. I appreciate the information. The assertion that because of the size and the shape of the lot and its proximity to a major thoroughfare and the environmental constraints of floodplain and wetland area, the accessibility constraints of the widening of Eastern Boulevard, that the consideration should be that the city should make the property more compatible for a greater density of development than is currently permitted.
Well, my first point would be the city has already done that with its future map. The city has already said this property should be zoned RMED. And so all we're doing is asking the city to do what it says it is going to do. Maybe we're a little out of order.
At some point in the future.
Huh?
At some point in the future.
Well, at some point in the future, but, you know, I mean, let's face it, Eastern Boulevard is a constantly moving target, so to speak. I mean, there's constant development. If there's any active development going on, that certainly is an area that is always has something going on. So I think this is part of the fluidity of what is occurring. I understand the point. Why would you make it more dense? Well, I don't think it's that it's so much that it will make it more dense. It's that the setbacks and the side yards, the distances will be easier to be met than a single family.
But you say clearly in this document that you've provided, I mean, it says explicitly that it is economically not feasible to develop it at the density in which it is currently zoned. Therefore, the impetus or the implication is that it is indicating that you need additional density in order to make it economically feasible to develop. So
Well-
it is a request for a greater density of
And
development.
there may be somebody that, yeah, I mean, there may be
mean,
somebody that would be
I didn't
interested in
write
developing
this.
it into 4 or 5 residential lots and trying to make what they could off of it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, development, if water and sewer was right there, the argument might not be, you know, as strong, but there is no water and sewer there. And let's face it, it costs money to extend those utilities. And so it really does boil down a bit to an economies of scale type of argument here that, you know, again, this is not trying to create condominium units or anything of that nature. This is really just taking your lot size, instead of being 7,500 square feet, then 5,000 square feet, having the ability to have townhouses. And again, as that plays into your RMED zoning concept on Eastern Boulevard, it is allowing perhaps smaller units with smaller yards at a more affordable price for people who are willing and able to live in the city of Hagerstown, and provides housing that would be affordable. So typically a townhouse,
Yeah, we have plenty of affordable housing.
I understand, but typically townhouses are going to be more affordable than a single-family home, a freestanding detached. I'm not, I mean, it's, sure. This is Ben Showell, or I mean, Daniel Showell, who's here for Ben.
Can I say something? The reason really that came to my attention why I'm asking for looking to put RMED. If you look at your setbacks for the RMOD, which is currently, we can put a single family or a duplex lot with a 25-foot rear. Rear is 35-foot setback, and a front yard 25. So in total, we have 60 feet of setback. When the RMOD allows for a total of 45, a 15-foot front yard and a 30-foot rear yard. So that shortens the span of 15 feet. One lane of Eastern Boulevard that they want to impede and take from us is going to be 15 feet or more with the, so we can't just give it up. We annexed the property in 2006 to the city, not to pay more taxes, to make it usable, to take the water and sewer and have a chance, to develop something there. We're fine with even putting a duplex if it pencils out. The problem is we just can't give up that piece of land to the county at the moment and render the land useless. They want to give $4,000 or $5,000, and that 8 acres is going to become unusable because it's going to push, with these 60-foot setbacks, push us into the floodplain, and it won't work. The math doesn't pencil out. But it's a very, very narrow strip of land. So to me, it made sense not to lose our opportunity here with by just signing over for $5,000 a piece of land that we spent a lot of money to legally to get it annexed to the city, and we just want to reserve our right to be able to in the future protect, use the land or something.
And again, I mean, it may not be an absolute, but what the state law sort of dictates in this scenario is once you've created your future map, and you've designated your zoning preference moving forward, you are to zone in that area, and your RMED is exactly your medium density. It's my understanding that you don't even really have any mod per se in the city limits. So we're really just asking you to zone this in conformity with what you said your future growth is going to be, and really pretty much in conformity with what everything else would be in a comparable scenario in the city. And then he's explained the practical difficulties probably better than I did, because again, this came up on short notice, and what I was hearing mostly is that it's going to be more difficult to try to just create larger single-family residential lots, which is what you're limited to pretty much in RMOD. I think you can have two-family, but still.
And the lot size is almost, I think, the same. In an RMOD for a single family, you have a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet, and a townhome, I believe, in a RMED is also 7,500 square feet.
Which is a bit interesting, too.
It's just the setbacks,
Yeah.
which help us to help facilitate and not be a holdup to expanding Eastern Boulevard.
Yeah. But interesting, in an RMED, a single-family dwelling only requires a 5,000 square foot. So that also creates an opportunity to build single detached homes on smaller lots, smaller than what would be required for a townhome. So in a sense, it's encouraging your developers to build single detached homes on what I would consider a typical city lot, between 5,000 and 7,500 square feet. So I'm not sure what the real logic was there, because I'm thinking a townhome is going to typically have a larger, or have a smaller overall lot size, but these are the dimensions that are in your zoning ordinance at this point. So all we're asking is this be permitted to move forward, and reviewed by the planning commission, and if another public hearing is necessary, then I'm assuming you'll see us again. If not, then we hope that it moves forward as part of the group of properties that are being considered for comprehensive rezoning here tonight.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No one else has signed up to either speak for or against the comprehensive plan review. If there is anybody at this point in time, please come to the microphone, give us your name and address. Come on up. Well, hang on, I got. Well, it doesn't have testified check, that's why I'm asking.
I'm Jerry Kump. I know some of you know me. I'm a professional engineer, professional land surveyor. I owned the building down here on Franklin Street, right beside the post office, from 72 to 80. And then I moved over to Baltimore Street, bought two buildings in 80, and then I bought another building about 10 years later. Yeah, I have a large parking lot down there. Well, I say it's large for Hagerstown. It's 40-some parking spaces. I rent out to a couple people, businesses in the area. I believe and I don't have the book here with me, but I was at the June Planning Commission meeting and went over, I have like 10 or 12 different usages in my 3 different commercial buildings. And they're all, it was included in there that I could, keep what under the new zoning mixed use, that I could keep, my tenants I have in there and everything, what I've been using. So as long as there's not been any change since the June meeting before the Planning Commission with the usages, I'm okay, with what you're proposing, except for one thing. I believe it was a 500-foot restriction from my parking lot to rent out to people to have rental spaces or use the parking lot. And I happen to own one of the buildings. One of my buildings I have was the first first rabbi for the synagogue. That was his house, and that's where they had services. And Dr. Gerald Falk told me that. But anyway, I've made my parking lot available to the synagogue since back in the 80s, since I bought it. And I've gotten letters from Mrs. Monk and different people thanking me for it. They may not even be eligible now with this 500 foot. I'd have to measure it, and it depends on where they measured from. Do they go back 200 feet off Baltimore Street back to the alley where I got parking? And it's 400 and some feet just getting up to Locust Street. But I don't think there should be any restriction on the how far the business or whatever has to be away from the parking lot. I've already been contacted by Mr. Thurston that just bought the Massey Ford, and he's very limited in parking and wanted to know where he could rent some places, you know, for his employees to park. And I just don't see why there, you know, if people want to walk a block, and I'm sure there's a lot of employees around Hagerstown and in the county here that walk, you know, more than 500 feet to get to their parking spot. So I do take exception. Is the staff here? I think it was 500 feet is what I was told, and I you know, took exception to that. I don't see why that should be restricted any at all. Outside of that, I really don't have any, you know, we're allowed to continue on with, you know, the usages we have. It's a mixed-use area, and, you know, right behind us, we got a lot of commercial and everything, tri-state printing, et cetera. So it's, you know, it's a conglomeration of a little bit of everything. But everyone gets along fine. Since I've been there, just to mention it, since 1980, I cleaned the sidewalks every week from Locust to Mulberry since 1980, because the street sweeper goes by every Tuesday morning. They know me and wave to me and everything else. But anyway, that's another whole story. But basically, I don't have any problems with the proposed map amendments here, the planning, the comprehensive planning thing, except for I don't think there should be any restriction on how far a person's got to be to rent a parking spot.
We'll get clarification from staff on that.
Yeah, I really, because the people I have right now would still be within that 500 feet, but the people who've contacted me up on the first block of Baltimore Street, you know, they wouldn't be eligible. And, you know, and parking is a problem. That's why I bought this property to start with, because it had such a nice parking lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Pat Whitmore. I live at 15 Funkstown Road in Hagerstown. I've been there for 23 years, and my property is, the east side of my property abuts on the rezoning area on Heb Road that you all are, that's on the list. Just a couple of observations. I'm against the rezoning of it. A couple of reasons. The road, Heb Road, is a very narrow road. Something would have to be done as far as that goes for the amount of traffic, if it were developed, that it would have to take. I mean, I work in Frederick, so I go out that way every day on the dual highway. There's a lot of traffic, and it has picked up over the years. That whole area there is also a floodplain, so whenever it rains, anybody that lives around there can see it flooding that area and running across the road into the people's yards, across the street from them too. And anybody that comes from out of the city and comes home, if there's an accident on 70, you can always tell what's going on, because everything gets rerouted off onto the dual highway and onto Heb Road, and it just clogs up the whole area. It's a nice little place now. I mean, and we enjoy living there, but a lot would have to change, I would think, for it to be changed as far as the POM status that you all are looking for, because the road is very narrow, it's very windy, and it's hardly enough room now for two cars to pass each other without, you know, sideswiping each other. And just,
I've been on that road a lot, I know.
yeah.
So you want it to remain residential high density?
The way it is now, that piece of property that abuts mine, I believe is agricultural. 'cause
No, it's high density.
Okay,
It's
somebody
resident-
is
that's,
farming it all the time.
They could put apartments in there right now.
Yeah, right
The way it's
now.
zoned right now,
Seriously?
yes, the way it's zoned right now, they could put high-density apartments there.
Well,
We're
I know-
taking that zoning away.
I know that some discussion has been had in the past with it being on a floodplain, and that was part of the reason why that hasn't been done yet, because it would be so expensive to fix that problem, basically. I was under the impression that it was agricultural, I guess because the farmers, somebody's always planting something there, it seems like.
But
Yeah,
it's
I
zoned
think-
for high-density residential.
I think the only issue is it's never sold. Nobody has ever wanted to take advantage of that zoning, so this would put it to more of a professional
As
office
opposed to
mixed use,
residential.
like a retail, parking lot, not as high density.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, well, that was just my comments.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, no one else has signed up to speak on the rezoning. Is there anybody who wishes to? We'll close out the public hearing. Want to step up? Do you have anything you want to add, Megan? Okay, all right. Any questions for staff?
I have two questions. The comments that we received from public input, and I don't know when we would have the opportunity to maybe get some clarification. My interest is in comment number 1 and comment number 9. The first comment is from the individual, and there was a number of individuals that spoke to the concerns associated with the rezoning of the, everybody refers to it as the corner. So that's the Eastern Boulevard, Northern Avenue corner. And, I saw the letters in here that sort of spoke to the fact of its, sellability over time, and it sort of has continued to sit empty. And I guess for me, I probably have the same sort of question that it looks like some of the folks are asking here is what does it mean? In other words, I understand that it's going from one type of commercial zoning allowance of uses to another group of zoning allowances for commercial purposes. But I think, and Lou can correct me if I'm wrong, this property, I think, has sort of been in the headlines of what's it going to be for 25 years.
That's correct.
So I would look at the intersection that is out towards Foxley Meadows, the North Point development, the development that I think Mr. Crampton did. And you have that sort of office-type building that's out there. And I remember, sitting on the county side of the table and folks in the Foxley Meadows sort of, raising the alarm of, if you change this, what's it going to look like? And I think, what you see there now is probably different than the vision that some folks may have had of what could have went there, or what they expected to happen to go there. And then I look at, a corner such as the one across from me, Russell Hicks, and it has, the big sheets there. And so I guess that's my question is, if I'm a resident out there, if I'm somebody raising these concerns, what are the real items that can occur that I would say are more retail-oriented, commercially, loud, versus how it's zoned now? Because I feel like that's what people are asking.
Yeah, the professional office mixed use is kind of how it sounds as far as office buildings, and kind of allows commercial uses like that, whereas the commercial local is kind of intended to be better fitting with the character of a residential area. So kind of more like a mom and pop store kind of use situation.
So
A smaller scale commercial.
Okay, so let me just be even more plain. So right now, the way it's zoned, and it appears economically not feasible, in the time that it's been zoned, that to allow for some type of office-oriented construction, correct? So if it goes to commercial local, I hear you saying mom and pop. My question that I think any resident that probably raising the question is, and has that curiosity is, does it mean a gas station? Could it be an AT&T? Could it be,
Gas stations aren't allowed in commercial
Could it be a
local.
convenience center? What type of retail are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't think any gas station or convenience centers at all
Could be
are
a
allowed in
Walgreens,
commercial
though.
local. What's that?
Could be a Walgreens.
Pharmacy? I think that's, I'm not really sure.
The main difference
Bigger.
that they're looking for is that with commercial local,
Mhm.
you could have a standalone building that could be retail, or a standalone building that could be restaurant. But in the commercial local, the square footage is pretty small as what that can be, but you cannot do gas sales in the commercial local.
Yeah.
So that
What
would
about-
rule out a full-scale convenience store.
Would it rule out something running 24/7?
There are no hours associated with any of the uses in the zoning ordinance.
Because, I mean, that's one thing I notice of the development out across from Foxley, is that's an office building, and just like the Louds building, I mean, it's closed at, 6 o'clock, and so that traffic-oriented, the sort of, loudness nature of retail doesn't occur. And so that's my curiosity, and I think that's probably the curiosity some folks, that live in the immediate vicinity would probably have about, what that change means.
Yes, one of the concerned citizens asked me the difference between the BOM and the CL, and I explained, and relieved the concern about a convenience store with gas sales. And his impression was, well, I would prefer CL to POM then.
Okay.
But that was one person.
But that was also the biggest opponent of the zoning change years ago.
The second one I have is the last one, which is number 9. And I think we have a letter associated with that item as well. And I guess maybe I'm a little confused. The necessity for doing it is the proposed change of the copy quick from CG to N-MU. Maybe my basic question is, what's the need for that to occur?
I think the request was that it's a commercial building and will be continued to operate as a commercial building. So that area is actually not proposed to be rezoned to mixed use. So we're gonna kind of have this corner of commercial zoning where we were already keeping this corner here, and then we're just extending that to I think there's 2 or 3 parcels there that would remain a true commercial use instead of being mixed use and mixing with a residential. Just simply because the buildings are much more commercial in nature than the others surrounding there.
Okay, so to expand the area, not contract it.
Right, it would, essentially those properties would be remaining the same as they are now. They just wouldn't be included in the rezoning to mixed use with the rest of that area.
I got it. Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Anything else for? We'll close the public hearing and keep the record open for 10 days. Sorry?
I'm sorry, Mayor Bucci,
Yeah. Go ahead.
perhaps you all have phone this and probably did, and this is my first time here and I didn't pick it up. Megan, this is probably a question for you. What does the POM entail? Like, what sort of businesses, if it's zoned POM?
Professional office mixed use.
Right, okay, but it would be office buildings, are there no retail or no?
I think there's some retail. Yeah, it's
Inside?
more of like an office.
Like a restaurant?
Right.
Before I close it officially, anybody else? All right, close the public hearing and keep the record open for 10 days. Moving on to adopting the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of minutes as presented from the mayor and council meetings held on January 7, 14, 21, and 28 of 2020.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Approval of an ordinance, acceptance of donation of real property to Greens at Hamilton Run.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for approval of an ordinance accepting the donation of approximately 11.667 acres of land from the Washington County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, to the city of Hagerstown. This action returns to the city a portion of the golf course conveyed to the Board of Education in approximately 1988.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Introduction of an ordinance, amend the city code by repealing and reenacting chapter 140 of the Land Management Code.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council introduce an ordinance to amend the city code by repealing and reenacting Chapter 140 Land Management Code. The reenacted Land Management Code includes the 2019 package of revisions finalized by the mayor and city council. This reenacted version of the Land Management Code shall be known as version 3.6.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Introduction of an ordinance authorizing.
Can we
the sale-
back up, Mr. Mayor?
I'm sorry?
Can you back up for a moment and ask if there are any opposed?
Oh. All right, opposed?
Aye.
So it's 4-1. You got to speak up. Introduction of an ordinance authorizing the sale of property located at 117 South Locust Street.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and city council to introduce an ordinance authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 117 South Locust Street to 339 Antietam LLC for a purchase price of $15,000. The sale will provide the opportunity for ongoing redevelopment and private investment at 117 South Locust Street. The property is a CDBG asset, and all sale proceeds will be classified as CDBG program income to be used for the city's CDBG program activities. The sale will be in accordance with all terms and conditions outlined in the attached purchase agreement.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Introduction of an ordinance authorizing the sale of property located at 36 to 40 North Potomac Street.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and city council to introduce an ordinance authorizing the sale of city-owned property located at 36-40 North Potomac Street to 339 Antietam LLC for a purchase price of $460,000. The sale will provide the opportunity for ongoing redevelopment and private investment at 36-40 North Potomac Street. The property is a property management asset funded in part with CDBG money, so an applicable portion of the sale proceeds will be returned to the CDBG fund. The sale will be in accordance with all terms and conditions outlined in the attached purchase agreement.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Approval of resolution authorizing designation of alley number 2-7 as Argus Lane.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move to authorize the designation of alley number 2-7 as Argus Lane. This alley is between Virginia Avenue and Sherman Avenue. The alley is so named to eliminate confusion with the addressing of properties that front on the alley.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of resolution, the execution of an agreement between the city of Hagerstown and the Board of County Commissioners for the reconstruction of Basil Boulevard.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and city council to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the city of Hagerstown and Board of County Commissioners for the reconstruction of Basil Boulevard. The approval provides that the city attorney may make administrative and non-substantive edits to the attached agreement if necessary prior to execution.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of resolution, the extension of an agreement, execution of an agreement between the city of Hagerstown and North Point Development LLC for the reconstruction of Basil Boulevard.
Mr. Mayor, we move from the mayor and city council to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the city of Hagerstown and North Point Development LLC for the reconstruction of Basil Boulevard. The approval provides that the city attorney may make administrative and non-substantive edits to attached agreement if necessary prior to execution. The approval also provides that the city administrator may execute a written addendum to the agreement at a later date that shall attach and incorporate Exhibit B as referenced in the agreement.
Second.
Discussion.
I would only note that it's probably appropriate at this point to point out the good working relationship that staff went through with county staff and the good working relationship that we had with our counterparts, the Board of County Commissioners, to see this process through, and probably what was one of our most expedient agreement processes that I've ever been witness to. And I think that, you know, the developer spoke to that, and I think it was in part because the developer was positive and committed to the process from the outset.
Anybody else?
Excellent
All in favor?
job.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of resolution lease agreement with the Maryland Watchworks LLC for the city of Hagerstown property located at 14 Potomac Street, Suite B3, Hagerstown, Maryland.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council approve the attached resolution authorizing the lease agreement with Maryland Watchworks LLC at the City of Hagerstown property located at 14 North Potomac Street, Suite B3 in Hagerstown, Maryland. The term of the lease shall be for 3 years.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of an open container exemptions for Visit Hagerstown CVB, Dolman Black Heritage Museum, Hagerstown Hopes Pride, and August Oktoberfest.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that mayor and council approve exemptions from the City of Hagerstown's open containers regulation under Section 173-6 of the Code of the City of Hagerstown for Visit Hagerstown Convention and Visitors Bureau at University Plaza on May 22nd, June 26th, July 24th, and August 28th, for Dolman Black Heritage Museum at University Plaza on June 19th and June 20th, for Hagerstown Hopes in the Central Lot on July 18th, and for August Oktoberfest in the Central Lot on August 15th and 16th.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of a used vehicle purchase.
Mr. Mayor, I move the mayor and council approval of the purchase of a used 2016 Ford Police Interceptor for $12,500 and associated auction fees of $350 from the Mason-Dixon Auto Auction. The vehicle will replace a vehicle damaged in an accident. The purchase will be made with funds from the Hagerstown Police CIP Project 45-C0129 police vehicles.
Second.
I will give that to him. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. General citizen comments. You're up. And you're limited to 3 minutes, as per our amended,
My name's Marvin Lohr. I live up on Sunnyside Drive in Hagerstown. And I'm very concerned about the shootings we're having in town. And I'd like to know what the police department's doing and the city council's planning on doing. I have a number of residential units. I have some on Liberty Street. We just had a shooting a couple weekends ago. A couple doors up from one of my places. We had shootings near Jonathan Street, which is a block and a half away from the places I have, half a block from City Hall. I'm having trouble now getting tenants to come into the downtown because I verify all my tenants, make sure they're good people. And they take a look at the place, they like the place, but they get to thinking about it's downtown, it's not safe. Went to a meeting, I think it was back in November, and the police chief says it's better than it used to be, which it may be or it may not be, but the perception is it's not, and it's hurting. It's going to hurt downtown unless somebody does something. And I know society's different than when I grew up, because I grew up near the University of Maryland and went to school in D.C. And in the first grade on, it was a little short of 7-8 miles. And I used to be able to hitchhike from first grade on. And I know society is going downhill since then, and but there's a lot of good people out there. But I think instead of things like the paintings on the buildings, and maybe this walkway to the park is a good thing, but maybe that's should be tomorrow, not today. So I'm asking the city to find some money and some ideas and try to help the police department out. I know they've been short-handed for some time, and you can only go short-handed for so long until you start not doing the jobs you should be doing. I think one thing we need downtown too is feet on the sidewalks. And I'll bring up again about all these empty storeroom windows we have downtown. And I have suggested doing robotics things in these windows. You have robotic clubs in a number of these high schools and colleges around here. And put something in there to draw people to come downtown, because these businesses can't come in one at a time and are able to sustain. I go to Frederick, I can hardly find a daggone place to park, day or evening. I come up here like 2 weeks ago. It was a Friday evening, 8 o'clock. I looked from 100 block of North Potomac Street and all the way down. I saw not one person on the sidewalk. As I went around the corner and looked from Potomac and and Franklin Street, I could look all the way down both directions, and I saw absolutely no one. And I say, you go to Frederick, people down there, you got to ride around, find a place to park, or hope the deck's not full. So I'm saying you got to have something to bring the people down and not spend millions of dollars at a crack and get no return, except maybe a long time in the future. So once again, I think that robotics would work. Put some stuff in these storeroom windows and work with the landlords. And that's it for this week.
Thank you.
Margaret, I think I agree with what you say about needing to find additional money for the police department. And I think that's incumbent upon all of us as we go through our next budget cycle to see where.
A couple of years ago, it seemed like I was running into police all the time on the back parking lot I have, or the sidewalk and whatnot. And it's almost a rarity now.
One of the sad things, it's just a fact of life. I met with two people today, and they were both telling me about how they had run the gauntlet and to get their concealed carry permit because they were afraid to do business downtown. And
I'm at that point now.
That's a sad commentary on our city. I'm not blaming the police department, of course. I think we have not done our job here to give them the resources that they need to get the officers' strength levels up. So I think that's incumbent on all of us here, but it's incumbent on all of the citizens of the city too to be vigilant and to join together in trying to keep this place to be an orderly, law-abiding city, which it is rapidly deteriorating from.
I agree.
Anything else, Mark?
And, you know, any organization of this size, I'm sure you could find 5% of your budget to move around somewhere else.
Agreed.
Thank you. Gail Hoffman. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Again.
I tend to talk low, so if I get low, please tell me. My name is Gail Hoffman. I'm at 318 East Baltimore Street, and the reason I'm here is I want to talk about, excuse me, I just have to set my timer here because I'll forget. I don't want to hold you up. But I want to talk about the article in the paper, City Council denies request to outlaw abortion in Hagerstown. The Hagerstown Mayor and Council will not support a resolution to become a sanctuary city for the unborn. The reason I'm talking about this is I've been a sidewalk counselor for around 17 years in this town, and I've seen all kinds of things happen, and I've heard every excuse there is for abortion, and I've seen all kinds of tragedies from this place. This place does not have wheelchair access front or back. Last time they had a state inspection, or one of the times when they had a state inspection, one of the workers washed the toilet with their bare hands without washing her hands and went directly to work with a patient. There's just so many women from there come out and they wind up in the hospital hemorrhaging. One woman told me in the I think it was around 2005, she said, I've been hemorrhaging from this place from the 90s. I've heard so many tragedies from this place, actual voices from people going in and out of that place. I read on the statement, said, you know, I'm not picking on anybody, believe me. I have a friend who's survived abortion, and I have friends who've had abortions. I'm not here to pick on anyone, name any names, but this is very serious. You know, I feel like I see all these signs: respect, citizenship, responsibility. We are a character counts community. Trustworthiness, fairness, caring. These babies are innocent and helpless. They're in the womb, and they are babies. Fetus means little one in Latin. And I heard some people say, or wrote, or commented, it's the woman's body. I talked with the nurse at the abortion mill. She tried telling me that, and I said, no. I looked her in the eye, and I said, no. You know it has separate DNA. It's a separate entity. I like to ask the men who come out there, were you your mother when you were in her womb? Of course not. You were a separate sex. This is something we tell ourselves so we can rationalizing the killing of innocent babies. It is not helping women. I know some of you think it helps women. It does not. I see them coming out later, and they're crying. Some of them become alcoholics. One woman came screaming, I hate your signs, I hate your signs. And then she came over, my friend said, just talk to us. We're not against you. We're here. We're against the building. We're against the evil, but we're not against you. And she said, I hate your signs, but she said, I love your signs because you warn other people about abortion. And if I would have known about it, I wouldn't have gone through with it. She said, I'm an alcoholic today because of this place. One woman came past 24 years later. She was alcoholic. It looked like she'd been in the street for a few years. She said, I had an abortion in this building 24 years ago. She said, I think about that little baby every single day. I named her Cheyenne Nicole, and I wish I wouldn't have done it. That's why I'm out there. One time I asked God, why am I out here? Because I came late, and it was very late. At the end of the day, women were coming out, and the little girl came out by herself. Now, it's not when you go to abortion mill by yourself. It's scary enough. Comes out a little girl, probably high school age, tears streaming down her face. I had asked God, why am I here? That's why I was there. I gave her a hug. Honey, can I give you a hug? Yes. I gave her a hug, and I said, we're here for you. We're not against you. We're against this evil killing. And you cannot be personally for abortion and then for women's right to choose. To choose what? To choose death. Death of a little, tiny, innocent baby. And I know a woman who survived because she was one of a twin, and her sibling was killed, but by the time her mother found out she was alive, she was too far along or too expensive, whatever it was, but she lives today. She has children today. But where would her rights be as a woman? She would have no rights if she was snuffed out, whether you consider she's a...
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you all. God bless you.
We say 3 minutes, we've had 2 people, and we're 10 minutes later.
Yeah, I concur.
Let's just
Also, for
follow
the
simple
record, I
rules.
want to point out that Ms. Hoffman is at 318 East Baltimore Street, but in Greencastle, Pennsylvania. Lisa? Full address, please.
Hello. My name is Lisa Plaisance, and I live at 11682 Rocky Meadow Road in Clear Spring, Maryland.
Awesome.
So this evening, I am addressing the Herald Mail article as well, entitled City Council Denies Request to Outlaw Abortion in Hagerstown, which was dated February 21st. I believe you need to hear some points again. And I want to tell you that life does begin at conception, and science confirms this, that life at conception is a human being. A woman has never given birth to a cat or a dog or anything other than a human being. You mentioned the sanctuary city resolution as going against federal law. There is no federal law for abortion, nor is it in the right to an abortion in the Constitution, its amendments, or the Bill of Rights. It was a Supreme Court opinion. You mentioned that you believe in a woman's right to choose, but I ask, to choose what? The government interferes with that right every day when you're required to wear your seatbelt, when you're not allowed to use illicit drugs, when you can't smoke in public because the smoke is going to harm other people. You mentioned unsafe abortions before Roe versus Wade. Well, the fact is that abortion is 100% unsafe for the baby then and now. And it is the only medical procedure that the death of the patient is a successful outcome. You mentioned that anti-abortion views come down to religion. Well, I tell you it comes down to humanity. Do you need to be religious to know that the extermination of 17 million men, women, and children in the Holocaust was wrong? We have our own Holocaust in the United States, approaching 60 million innocent and precious babies. And in Hagerstown, the equivalent of the entire town plus has been wiped out and destroyed by choice. Your inaction is action, and you have the blood of innocent children on your hands. When will the killing stop? Will we euthanize the elderly? How about the poor? Will that be okay? You hear about crime, shootings, drugs, need for additional funds for the police. Well, honestly, I don't believe God will
10
bless
seconds,
any
Lisa.
city. Pardon me?
10 seconds.
Any city or country. But I want to leave with this. Jesus says, "But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear who? Him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him." And he has an exclamation point. So I will continue to pray for you that you will trust in Jesus, follow him, ask forgiveness for your sins.
Thank you. No one else has signed up to speak at this moment. If anybody wishes to, please step up to the microphone and give us your name and address. I'm pushing the button.
Well, my name's Wanda King. I live at 53 East Franklin Street. I didn't have anything planned, but I did go back there and I met the doctor. I told him about my wonderful doctors that saved my life down in Baltimore, Meredith Hospital. And I said, and I thank Jesus. I know I keep on bringing up Jesus. I guess it's because when I was 5 years old, I got saved. And we talked, and I said, I really care about those women that go in there. That's why I'm out here, but I care about their babies also. He shook my hand, and he said, you know what you're saying is true. I'm going to think about that. And today, when I went up there, the doctor didn't come in. And I'm never stopping going up there, and I'm not stopping helping anybody here in Hagerstown, because I've seen where Hagerstown has gone downhill. Do you remember there was a newspaper place in the square down on the unit block of East Washington Street? They sold terrible magazines, and they played those R-rated movies. Well, they closed them. They said they looked bad for Hagerstown. Well, don't they think the abortion center looks bad for Hagerstown? I do. I really do. And I've been the one that brought up Hagerstown to a lot of people. And my dad said, Wanda, really, what's positive lately? Well, I see Hagerstown coming down, and it's not as positive. And I've been the one that always kept my chin up and always prayed with other people. But as long as I'm up on that hill, I'm closing the place. Because I do have a heart, and I do have the bravery.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Nothing. Kristen?
I have something, and it's in relation to the first speaker's comments, and I wanted to read just a very brief excerpt of an article that was in a newspaper today. And one of the things I get to do in the dynamics of being here, living here in my professional capacity, just over the mountain and seeing the comparatives that are often made. The police chief opening comes after several high-profile shootings and stabbings in the downtown area over the summer, although overall serious crime in the city was down. The city's crime statistics are lower than they've been in 20 years. Nevertheless, crime statistics do not equate to the feeling of safety. The city and police department are discussing ways to increase police presence, respond to the constantly shifting nature of crime, and make sure residents and visitors feel safe, especially in warmer months. That's Frederick City Mayor, Mr. O'Connell, talking in his State of the City address to Frederick. And so I use that example to say that, and I think as Austin has indicated, we have these issues. These issues are real. We have them just as any other city that has its successes and its challenges have. And we attempt to the best ability that we and our staff most especially do to address the fact that It is certainly not the days of another era, and these challenges are going to continue to exist. And frankly, as we continue to become more populous, more urban, will likely continue to incrementally increase and be challenges for some time. I would also go to the next part, which indicates the statement, and I appreciate, and by the way, I know the mayor, I think that he's a great individual. I've worked with him for a number of years indirectly. We have to identify what we can control and what we can't control. Other things the city will address in 2020 include working with the Army Corps of Engineers on issues such as flooding, as well as infrastructure, a registry to help track vacant properties in the city, which has become a significant issue, a study to look at the percentage of qualified minority businesses in the city and percentage of city money spent on various services, and working with a variety of partners to bring a hotel and conference center to downtown Frederick, sort of those big ticket items, and I'm very familiar with that project as well, and it's comparatively sort of one of those big ticket projects that I know that our mayor, the council, you know, and regardless of our opinion, sort of have those discussions about from time to time. And so I just use that as an example to indicate that you know, there are these complex similarities that we have and that we measure often as it applies to you know, whether we're succeeding or whether we're being overwhelmed by the challenges that we each often face.
That it?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Nothing this evening.
Oh, I have one last thing, I'm sorry.
Back up.
Just real quick, if I'd have known earlier, this alley that we were changing, my kids know this alley intimately. Every time we come back from the Big Dipper, they call this the Rock Pile Way because there's a huge sort of little stones rock pile that's been back there for decades. Since I was a kid, Scott, you can probably remember it. I mean, it's been there forever, and so, you know, I'm forced to go back there all the time and let them run around on the rock pile for a while. So I just found it interesting that was on the agenda tonight. So.
Emily.
Just something quick. I was in Philadelphia this weekend for my daughter's roller derby competition. And that night we were in a hotel in Center City in the hot tub. And there was a lady that was there with her daughter traveling for gymnastics. And she was from Anne Arundel County. And I told her I was from Hagerstown, and she was saying how she travels for work often and has to come to Washington County, and how she loves coming to Hagerstown, and that she's envious about how progressive we are and the changes that we've made over the last several years. And the same thing happened a couple months ago. I was down in Annapolis talking to someone that's from another part of Maryland, mentioned I was from Hagerstown, and they had the same sort of comments. So it's always interesting to me, here's a complete stranger in Philadelphia speaking highly about Hagerstown. You go to other parts of Maryland, they speak highly of Hagerstown. I hope that we can somehow figure out how to get the citizens of Hagerstown on board to see that, yes, we have our issues, many of which we talked about tonight, but there really is a lot of good things going on. It's recognized everywhere else. I just hope that we could start recognizing it here. That's all.
You know, I couldn't agree more with Emily. I hear more positive things. I hear as many positive things from people outside of this area that come to Hagerstown as I do negative things from people who live here and seem to find it a horrible place, but they want to stay. As my wife and I were doing a country drive this weekend, and unfortunately ran into Engine 4 out there fighting the fire in Fairview, we were commenting on what a wonderful area and what a wonderful place this is. It has its problems, but so does America and everywhere else. And I'm happy to be here myself. And I'm going to be as blunt with you, my friend, as I can. I don't have the answer. If I did to the shootings, I mean, if I knew how to stop them, take my word for it, I would have stopped them long ago. I mean, I know what you're saying. Police about the only answer, but that's about the only answer I have too. And it's going to cost money. And those of who know me forever know my feelings about raising taxes, right? Which is, I've never been opposed to it, because I think that you have to spend what you need to spend to do what you need to do.
That's just my take on it. That's all.
I appreciate what Councilman Alshire and Councilman Keller and, of course, Lou has echoed. This morning I went to, it's going to sound like I ate a lot. This morning I went to Free Range Cafe. I went to Public Square for coffee and a sandwich. I went to the Broad Axe for a meeting. I went to the farmer's market in the evening. This is all today. And nothing happened. I go downtown every single day, every day. Feel very safe. I applaud everyone that is working very, very hard to come up with creative and amazing ways to get our citizens to love where they live. This is an amazing place to raise a family, to visit, to stay, to work, all these things. As an employer myself, I firmly believe in the direction that this city is headed, and I can't wait for everyone else to get on board with it. That's it.
Margaret, I'll just tell you this. Every single day, I know that our chief of police and everyone at HPD wake up with the same goal, to keep our citizens safe. Please let me finish. I didn't interrupt you.
No, I want you to speak louder.
Oh, really? Okay. Every single day. All right. My police chief, my captains, my lieutenants, my sergeants, and every sworn personnel at HPD wake up with one goal in mind: keep our citizens safe. And every single day they go out and they do that job. Yes, we had been understaffed. We're not going to be understaffed for much longer when this next group comes out of the academy. Yes, our police need more money. Yes, everybody sitting up here has agreed they need more money. And we also know that there needs to be some other units created that attack major crime, okay? Which we had a precursor of that for about a month. And they did some great things and took a bunch of bad people off the streets. So, I will tell you this. Much like Shelley stated, I'm downtown a lot. I walk around a lot. I've never gotten shot. I've never been, well, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but, you know, I don't know how to answer that for you, buddy. All I can tell you is that it's never happened to me, okay? And I know that we are working tirelessly to come up with answers to all those questions that you have and concerns that you have and our other citizens have. That's all I can tell you. Do I think it's going to happen overnight? No, I don't think it's going to happen overnight. I think we're chipping away at it as we go, and for that, I give all the kudos in the world to our police department. So look for better things to happen. They're going to come. We'll get these other officers up and on the street and running, and we'll be up to a strength that's manageable, and we'll be able to attack some of these issues that we have. So you're not alone in your feelings, trust me. All right, with that said, we're adjourned. Thank you.